We're diving right in today. We're looking at American politics.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
After 2024.
exactly right.
Big year.
Huge.
Huge year.
Our source material today is Sarah Longwell.
Publisher of The Bulwark
That's right.
and JVL from their YouTube channel.
Yeah. And they're wrestling with the question of what do we do now?
Yeah, how do we navigate the next 4 years?
Yeah, and I love this because they actually propose that sometimes the best approach might be to just let things play out,
Uh-huh.
even if that seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, and Longwell, she refers to this as her modest proposal, which, kind of hints at something a little radical.
Right.
A different way of thinking about political opposition.
So set the stage for us.
Okay.
It's 2025.
Okay.
Trump has won the election.
All right.
Longwell and JVL are processing.
I like how Longwell puts it. She says she's trying to have this conversation while being swarmed by bees,
Yeah.
which I think kind of captures that feeling.
Right. There's all this anger and fear
Totally.
and uncertainty.
So JVL starts off with a thought experiment.
Okay.
Like, what if we just assume the best about Trump voters?
Okay.
Like, maybe they had real economic anxieties and they
Mhm.
weren't necessarily endorsing all the, the other stuff.
Right. All the baggage.
All the baggage, yeah.
But Longwell pushes back a little on that.
She does?
She says voters don't usually reward politicians for stopping bad things from happening.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Like, it's kind of like the classic dogs that didn't bark situation.
Right.
If the watchdog successfully deters a burglar,
You don't praise the dog.
you don't even know.
We don't see the danger.
Exactly.
Right.
But she also makes another really key point, which is that if you go too soft on Trump, you might actually end up emboldening even more extreme figures.
Right. So this is that slippery slope argument.
Yeah.
So then that leads them to this central question
Okay.
of how do we balance the potential for damage now
Right.
versus long-term consequences.
Yeah. When do you fight like tooth and nail? And when do you maybe pick your battles a little bit more strategically?
Exactly. And Longwell uses this specific example of tariffs,
Oh, yeah. Terrorists.
which are basically taxes on imported goods.
Right.
And they can really affect prices,
And
jobs, impact the economy.
And Longwell says if these tariffs are going to hurt Trump voters,
Right.
which some economists say they will,
Right.
then maybe it's better to just let them experience those consequences.
Oof. That's a tough one to swallow.
It is.
Just thinking about, are they saying we should just let people suffer?
Yeah, it seems a little harsh.
Yeah, but I think what they're getting at is not so much causing harm on purpose,
Okay.
but it's thinking about strategy.
Okay.
Like, how do we create change?
Mhm.
And she's arguing that sometimes, letting people feel the impact of a policy directly,
Right.
even if it's negative,
Right.
can be more effective in the long run.
So it's almost like let the consequences speak for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. But she makes it clear this is not just accepting everything Trump does.
Right.
There are lines.
So, for instance, if something's illegal.
Absolutely. Got to challenge that directly.
Okay, and what about, policies that target specific groups
Nope. Those are off limits, too.
that didn't vote for Trump?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to push back on that.
What about things that could have global consequences, like, say, abandoning Ukraine?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. She says that needs immediate and forceful pushback.
Okay.
You can't, that's a matter of principle, but also there are some decisions
Right.
that have consequences that are really tough to reverse.
Right. So it's not completely hands-off.
No.
It's about being strategic, choosing your battles,
Yeah.
and sometimes letting things play out.
And understanding when to step back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then JVL brings up another point.
Okay.
What happens if Trump does something good?
Ooh, interesting.
Should the opposition cooperate?
All right.
And they use the example of aid to Ukraine, which has had bipartisan support.
Right.
And they both agree, if Trump proposes something
Uh-huh.
that would genuinely help Ukraine
Okay.
and has bipartisan support,
Right.
then Democrats should absolutely be on board.
So it's like a pragmatic approach.
Right.
Take the win.
Take the win.
Yeah.
Or you could get it.
Even if it's from an unexpected source.
Right. But the big challenge here is Trump is unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to make the next 4 years really hard to figure out.
For sure. And Longwell specifically brings up this possibility of Trump trying to run for a third term.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't there that 2-term limit?
Yeah. That's in the Constitution.
Right.
There's always a but with Trump.
Always.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is going to hang over everything for the next 4 years.
Right.
This possibility that he might try and skirt the rules to stay in power adds a whole other level of complexity
Right.
to everything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. It's like this this big question mark just hanging over
Mhm.
everything. Will he, won't he?
Exactly. And that uncertainty is going to make it really tough for anybody to plan ahead,
Right.
whether you're supporting Trump or opposing him.
Yeah, and we keep coming back to this idea of letting voters have the Trump they asked for.
Yeah.
And I got to say, when I first heard that phrase,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. It sounds a little harsh, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you're advocating for just letting people suffer,
Yeah.
just to prove a point.
I understand the reaction.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a feel-good approach.
Right.
But I think what they're trying to do here is really understand the psychology of
Yeah.
what's going on
Uh-huh.
and try to figure out what will actually change people's minds.
So instead of trying to prevent every single bad thing that might happen,
Right.
you kind of let those consequences play out
Yeah.
so people can see, okay, this is what this actually looks like.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Sometimes people need to experience the consequences of their choices
Yeah.
to really learn and grow from them.
It's like touching a hot stove.
Exactly.
You can tell someone it's hot, but
Till they get burned.
yeah, they don't really believe you.
Right. And Longwell uses that analogy to explain why she thinks preventing Trump from doing certain things might actually backfire.
Okay.
Because if you're constantly shielding people from the consequences of his actions,
Okay.
it lets him keep telling the story that he's the only one who understands their problems.
Uh-huh.
And everyone else is just trying to hold them down.
So it feeds into that us versus them
Exactly.
mentality.
It reinforces that idea that he's the champion of the forgotten man.
Right.
Fighting against the establishment, yeah.
Okay.
So by letting some of his policies play out, even if they're harmful in the short term,
Right.
you're pulling back the curtain
Yeah.
and exposing what those policies actually deliver.
It's risky, though.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
But they're arguing that it might be the only way to cut through all the partisan noise
Right.
and help people realize that they've been sold something that's not true.
But the thing that I keep coming back to is, what about the people who get hurt along the way?
Right.
I mean, some of these policies could have real consequences
Yeah.
for people's lives,
Absolutely.
their livelihoods, their health.
It's a real ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
How much short-term pain is acceptable to achieve a long-term goal?
Right.
And who gets to decide what level of pain is okay?
It's tough.
Really tough questions.
Yeah.
No easy answers.
Yeah. It feels like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And they admit that their approach is not going to be popular with everyone.
It takes a certain amount of detachment, I think, to
Yeah.
just say, okay, let's see how this plays out.
Right.
When you know people are going to be affected.
It feels cold, right?
'Cause-
Even if you have good intentions. I think it's important to remember, though, that they're not coming from a place of apathy.
Okay.
They're trying to be realistic about how hard it is
Uh-huh.
to oppose someone like Trump.
Okay.
They've seen how traditional methods of resistance can
Uh-huh.
sometimes be ineffective or even make things worse.
So they're looking for a different playbook.
Exactly.
One that's not just about fighting every single fight.
Yeah, it's about choosing the right battles
Okay.
and understanding when to step back strategically.
So sometimes the best way to oppose something?
Is to actually step back
Yeah.
and let the consequences speak for themselves.
That's like a judo move.
Yeah,
You're using their momentum against them.
exactly. But it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to play the long game.
And you have to trust that people will actually learn from their mistakes.
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Is that trust warranted in this case?
Right.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, but regardless of whether you agree with their approach, I think they're raising some really important questions
For sure.
about how we think about political opposition.
Especially in a time when things feel so polarized
Yeah.
and divided.
Okay, so just so I'm clear on this, their main points are sometimes it's better to let things play out
Yeah.
and let people see the results for themselves,
Yeah.
but there are certain lines you don't cross,
Absolutely.
like illegal stuff
Yep.
or targeting certain groups.
Right?
And if your opponent does something good,
Yeah.
you should be willing to work with them,
Even if it's unexpected.
even if it's unexpected.
Yeah, it's a nuanced approach.
Yeah.
It challenges that resist everything mentality that we've seen a lot of lately.
And it forces us to really think about
Yeah.
some tough questions.
About power.
Yeah.
And
government. And what we can actually do.
On individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you think twice about those resist bumper stickers, huh?
It does.
Maybe sometimes the best way to resist is to just be patient, right? It's like inaction can be a form of action.
Yeah, a fascinating paradox.
Yeah. And it's not just about Trump either,
Oh,
right?
No, this idea of letting consequences play out,
Right.
this could apply to all kinds of political situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Like imagine there's a policy that sounds great at first,
Mhm.
but then you realize it might have some bad consequences down the road.
Oh,
Do you fight it right away?
Right.
Risk looking like you're just trying to obstruct everything.
Yeah. Or do you let it happen and hope people learn from it?
Even if it means things get a little messy in the meantime.
Yeah, that's a tough choice.
It is.
You're weighing the present against the future.
Exactly. And who gets to decide which one is more important?
Right.
That's a question that's been around forever.
Yeah.
No easy answers.
Right.
But I think what they're trying to get us to do is to think about the long-term consequences of what we do, both as individuals and as a society.
So they're not saying be apathetic.
No, not at all.
Don't do anything.
It's about being more strategic.
It's more nuanced.
Yeah, it's not just resist or comply,
Right.
fight or surrender.
There are other options.
Right. They're saying think.
Yeah, don't just react.
Don't just react.
strategize.
But how do you actually do that
Right. How do you put that into practice?
when the stakes are high?
Especially when people's lives are on the line.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
It is, and that's where you come in.
The listener.
This deep dive isn't just about understanding their point of view.
Right.
It's about getting you to think critically
Right.
about these issues.
Yeah.
Apply these ideas to how you see the world.
Because it's not just about getting through the next 4 years
It's about shaping the
or
future
the next 4 decades.
and beyond.
Right. And that means we have to engage with these questions.
Yeah, the tough ones.
Wrestle with those dilemmas
And be willing to question our own assumptions.
about what it means to be politically active.
Exact.
So as we all try to navigate the next 4 years.
Remember what Longwell and JVL are saying?
Uh-huh.
It's a reminder that there are no easy answers.
But there are always ways to think strategically
To pick our battles.
and to learn from our mistakes.
Because sometimes the best thing you can do,
Is to step back
let the consequences play out.
and see what happens.
That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, everybody.